So my name is Joanna Schnedler. I'm the Executive Director of the Minnesota Music Coalition, and I'm so happy that you're all here. We also have an audience following us on live stream from across the state, I believe, which is really exciting. So I hope that you will join us following this panel for our breakout sessions, which are held upstairs on the second floor. And then we will have our vendor fair and networking social here in this room from 4 to 7, so that'll be great. And we'll have live music at that point from the School of Rock St. Paul Band and from Graydon Francis with Tarly and IMK. So I'm looking forward to that. And then tomorrow morning we'll be at Cadence Records and Coffee from 10 to noon, and Mike Munson will be doing music for us there. We'll be hanging out, networking. And then tomorrow afternoon, we're at Mall of America for a full afternoon of live music, a bunch of artists through the day, so you can see that schedule there. In addition, I almost forgot, tonight at 7 o'clock is a live stream performance from Duluth, from College of St. Scholastica, live from the Mitchell. Waylon and the Willows will be performing up there, which is going to be really great. Feel free to drive up and see the show live if you'd like to, because it is open for live audience as well, but it will be live streamed, and the link is on our website, mnmusicsummit.org. So yes, and I wanted to say a few quick thank yous. Thank you so much to the University of St. Thomas for hosting us here in this wonderful facility. We are partners on this event with The Current, with Slam Academy, with School of Rock, with the Mall of America, with College of St. Scholastica, live from the Mitchell, with just a number of partners, and so many people who have been on our task force. Any task force members in the room want to raise your hands? I know we've got a couple task force members. Yay, thank you. So thank you so much for helping us plan this event. This has been really exciting. And with that, we're going to start with a video from Bethany in New London, and I'll just get that started here in just a second.
Hello, Minnesota Music Summit attendees. My name's Bethany Lacktorin. I'm coming to you from Little Theater Auditorium in so-called New London, Minnesota, about an hour and a half west of the Twin Cities. Thanks for inviting me to tell you my Minnesota music story. I grew up in this town, and in fact, my first theater experience was right here in this building when I was maybe 5 or 6 years old. Obviously, I grew up and moved away, went to music conservatory for violin. I went to what was then called Music Tech and lived in Minneapolis for 10 years working as an audio engineer, getting my start at the 400 bar. Then I made the rounds working at different post studios downtown. I spent 8 years after that doing sound work in Prague, the Czech Republic, and came back home to Minnesota 7 years ago. When I was in Prague, I ran a little music venue called the Brick Bar in my spare time. I played with bands and worked with theater artists making music and sound design for different productions. So when I came back home and was looking for a job, I really wasn't finding a lot of mix work out here. And since I'd always been fortunate enough to be working at a studio, I didn't have my own gear. So I got a job working at Goat Ridge Brewing Company down the street, doing sound for their bands, and managed the bar for a while. And for a second, I was putting together open mic nights. And as a newcomer to town, kind of like new but not new, I was meeting a lot of people for the first time and came to discover that New London has an unusually high number of exceptional musicians just living here. So a couple years later, late 2019, I found out that the theater was going through a major transition. For the last several decades, Little Theater was supported primarily by the public school system as its drama department, and they just finished the school had just finished building an incredible state-of-the-art performance center, which left Little Theater free to rediscover itself. So I decided to become the director of Little Theater Auditorium. I just decided. And so, really, quite literally, I went to a board meeting and said, I'd like to do this. And they said, okay. The theater is a nonprofit. So I asked musicians and artist friends to join the board. We had about an 80% change in board members, and we did some restructuring, rewrote the bylaws, and put together our wonderfully ambitious 2020 season. And we all know what happened next. 2020, with the doors closed for the foreseeable future, I turned to the musicians in town and asked, would you be interested in playing a virtual open mic as a fundraiser? And they said, of course. So what a team. New board, new friends. We were bouncing around, figuring out cameras and OBS and Facebook Live, YouTube, you name it. We tried it and we did it. And to keep things COVID safe, we set up time slots for people to sign up for. They could stay and watch other players. We set up tables to keep everyone socially distanced. Everyone got at least 15 minutes on stage to play a song or two, read a poem, or tell a joke. Our fabulous board member, Maria Novak, emceed and asked each person questions that let us kind of get to know each other through the masks in a very special, kind of intimate way. I mean, we were all just making the best of it, having a lot of fun. It felt really good to see people watching online and sending donations. It definitely helped us keep the lights on and stay connected. It helped us make new connections. And as a new organization, we connected with the people living here in a different way. And that was April 2020. So we were getting better at the live streaming thing, and in all our optimism, we built a cocktail bar in the theater. We have since gradually added events to the calendar. We've got a Learn to Dance series every month where we give lessons in a type of dance and book a band playing the corresponding genre. So last month we had Malamania doing salsa. Before that, Mississippi Hot Club and Southside Aces doing two-step and swing. We've got the Orla String Band out of Duluth coming to do square dance, and the Jolly Huntsman doing polka. We produced an original radio theater show written by the multi-talented Maria Novak, with original music composed by Kyle Novak, and all performed by local musicians and actors. That show was called 100 Years Ago Today because it was based on our local newspaper's column called Lakes Area History. And what they do is they unarchive articles published 100, 75, 50, 25 years ago. This year, the theater turns 101 years old. And what I haven't mentioned is that during this time, during 2020, when we're all hustling to keep Little Theater alive, my father-in-law was moving through stage 4 cancer. He passed away on May 25th, 2020. And this is an important day for me for that reason, and an important day for all of us working hard to create a world where love is the law. I'll talk a little bit about Bill, my father-in-law. He was a 1 in a million person, the kind of extraordinary guy that doesn't just happen. But somehow he lived his life in a way that made you believe that we could all fit together. He made his living as a potter and is known as a master in his field. He was a naturally gifted musician and played with the bluegrass band and with tons of people throughout his life. He helped organize the New London Music Festival, which ran for 25 years, and was on the first board of directors for the New London Arts and Culture Alliance. He really was, part of that sticky stuff that held our town's community together just by being. He made it okay to be an artist in a small town. And I'm saying this because Bill was also the mayor of New London for 11 years, Mayor Bill Gossman. As a community, we still feel his loss. So next week on Tuesday, June 7th, the city of New London celebrates Bill Gossman Day. And to commemorate him and his generous spirit, we organized a day of live music in Bill's honor. And that's why I can't be with you today, because in a couple hours, all of Main Street and Central Ave will be filled with music played by our open micers who stuck with us and came together in 2021, the first year we did this, to fulfill one of Bill's desires, which was to start our very own version of a Porch Fest. So we're having Porch Fest 22 pretty soon here. Maybe you know someone like this in your community, someone whose steady, consistent commitment to living with an open heart cleared paths in the mindset of the public and helped lay down some solid bones upon which even now, like right now, as I'm talking to you, we continue to build up arts infrastructure in our rural communities, in New London, in your town. So thank you, Bill, and thank you to all of you who live with music in your hearts and share a hope for a loving and compassionate world. I'd like to leave you with a song written and performed at Little Theater Auditorium by one of our board members, singer-songwriter Brooke Ishins. Thanks so much, guys. Have fun.
They say time is bitter as the cold, and jealous as the darkest night. It's fleeting, but in time it'll all be alright. So snuggle close to feel the heat, and close your eyes and feel the peace. Let the winds blow and the snow fall down, as long as you're around. Time is all we have, it's true, just you, me, and the moon. Ooh. So let the sun come up and melt our blues. Spring will spring different hues. The thing that always stays the same is change. Come in close and feel at ease. Let us be just who we'll be. Feel the thunder.
And now I'd like to welcome up Maggie and Nathaniel from Treedome.
I'm Maggie, this is Nate. We run Treedome Productions, which is a creative studio and also a record shop, which is in Rochester, Minnesota, but we started our business in Winona, Minnesota. So we have connections kind of all over Southeastern, and that is part of our story. So we are going to kind of introduce a few things that we do now and how we started. Nate here is our photographer and videographer. Do you want to talk a little bit about that?
Yeah, so well, we'll start at the beginning a little bit.
Yeah.
So we started out in Winona around 2016. It was me and a bunch of music people in town. We kind of just started goofing off, making music videos, trying to book shows at bars downtown. Little ones, we had maybe 10, 15 people at some of the early shows. But we kind of just started working on these things, and we wanted to make sort of well, at first we wanted to do a record label, and that lasted about a week or two. Mm-hmm. And then we wanted to do a arts collective, like a formal one, that lasted about a week or two. Then we're going to be a Full Sail video production company, and that also only lasted a couple weeks. So we kind of ended up in this weird amalgamation of all of them. Mm-hmm. And we started out booking small shows, working through things. We had a shop in Winona for several years, and we still do a lot of the same things today, but now the team is just me and Maggie versus the initial one, which was like 14 people or something like that.
Yeah, so here's some images of Nate doing some of his video work. He's best known for music videos, including live sessions, and some creative work as well. Some of the bands that you've worked with.
There's too many. So, I mean, a lot of people in the Minneapolis scene I've met or worked with, especially like Dury, Good Morning Bedlam, let's see, Yam House, Gully Boys, Why Not? There's a lot of bands. We booked somewhere around 100 shows a year in Rochester and Winona. And then I've done somewhere around 120 live sessions, around 60 music videos, various odds and ends here and there. But yeah.
Yeah, so that's a little bit about what we do. We do have a sample of some of our work here that we'll just watch a few seconds of.
A few seconds.
I hate to be the one to break the news. This isn't like the world you grew up in and breezed right through. You always said to leave it better than you found it, but then you left it a little bit worse for wear. A little bit scared, a little underprepared, a little too self-aware. You always said it would get better when we're older. Now we're just big kids living in an old man's world. When's it gonna be our turn? Who's to say this is the way it's supposed to work? Or is it just a lesson we never learned? You've got the white picket fence and the second wife you can't stand. You got the job in the house full of fake friends. You got your luxury cars digging you deeper into debt, and your prescription addiction is working for the weekend. Never making any progress. Working for the weekend. Leave it better than you found it. A little bit worse.
So we have a lot of stories about some of the music videos that we make. They're all extremely different. They're all different genres of music. We have a very close relationship with Dury, which has been super fun because, as maybe some of you know, they're just kind of on the up and up right now. We had done a lot of work with their former band, Coyote Kid, who had their final show about a month and a half ago, which was a very sad moment for all of us, but everybody else was super thrilled for Dury. So
And then we brought them down for a show in Winona, and their bass amp broke
Yeah.
right before they were on stage. So I had to run home and grab mine and just go drop it off. And they ended up keeping that for 4 years.
yeah.
Which wasn't the initial plan. But well, let's go into like the more meat and potatoes here of what we do. So this is the initial shop that we had in Winona. So it was right downtown on 3rd Street. We used to be in the back of a place called Midwest Music Store, which was founded by Sam Brown, who also founded Midwest Music Fest. So we ended up renting out kind of the back garage-esque area of that shop for around a year or so, until we got moved into this one. We kept this for 3 years. We did a bunch of smaller shows with like Humbird and Larry Long. We kind of ran it as a record store, but really only had like one rack or so. It was mostly just kind of a home base to do our stuff. So we did that for a few years. This was kind of in 2016, 2017, into 2018. Around 2018 was when we kind of decided that we needed to start pushing to do something new. We wanted to start doing bigger shows, changing things up. So we did this thing called Shut Down 3rd Street, which was a full day free fest. We had 4 stages, around 20 bands, vendors, demonstration. We had a skate demo. What else?
Maybe important to note, we were probably only like 20, 21 at the time when we started all of this, and I think that's maybe an important piece of information for you. So, so this was one of our first kind of lineups that we put together that we were really, really proud of. One of the things about Winona that is maybe similar to other towns, it's very vibrant with an arts and cultural support network, but there's not often new events being developed, right? So this was a program we did specifically to have a brand new event in town. And so it was very, very successful. It was multiple blocks and a lot of people came out. It was free. We included some bars, so people had a great time well into the night. And that kind of brings us to some of the stuff that we do today, which totally shifted because of the pandemic. So when the pandemic started, and I'm sure we all have stories about what we did during the pandemic, but we ended up doing a fully virtual festival, and that was for Midwest Music Festival.
So the 2 prior years, we had run our shop as a venue for Midwest. And leading up into this one, we were going to be doing the same thing. But, you know, a month before the festival, everybody got the same news, which was that no festivals are happening. So we ended up meeting with Parker Forcell, who was the executive director at the time, or I guess creative director at the time.
Yeah.
To try and figure out what we were going to do. So we ended up going into this implementation pretty much right out the gate, where we had 80 bands over the course of 2 days. We had 2 separate computers live streaming out to 2 different accounts. Everybody was still like streaming from their house to us to stream out, and it worked, but it was a mess. But that was kind of what got us started into this kind of more digital age of things. We ended up helping out a couple other festivals. We did some stuff for Great River Shakespeare Fest. We helped Rochester also go entirely digital that year. Started doing some outdoor stuff. We did some drive-ins. And then in late 2020...
we found this dilapidated bar. And so probably the most important part of the pandemic for us was moving our business from Winona to Rochester. And there's a million things we could say about that, but it was a move that was kind of driven by this empty building on a block that was full of arts and culture already, and seeing kind of an influx of new businesses on that block that could support bringing business back to downtown in Rochester. I'm from Rochester, so the move was strategic in a lot of ways, and my family is there. So now today, that move has turned into a full-blown store, a very large store we didn't expect to have. It's kind of our side project in a lot of ways because we do a lot of video work, and our main work is in booking and working with festivals. So this is our shop today. We opened in November of this past year. We have a beautiful, beautiful, like 35-foot bar that is our workstation. We house local records, new records, used records, and we have a lot of fun, including booking small shows there.
That's not too bad for an office.
Yeah, it's a pretty fun office. It doesn't open until 11, so we're usually asleep right now. So we also have done a lot of new events in Rochester, similar to what we did in Winona, just bringing new ideas to town. That includes the sidewalk sessions, which is every week, multiple times a week in the downtown area. We started something called Punktoberfest, which is at a local brewery and supports a lineup of really awesome punk artists. We're going to do that again this year.
Punk/punk adjacent.
Yeah, punk adjacent, maybe. And then the other thing we do that has been a huge part of our life is we became the creative directors for Midwest Music Fest, ironically, after we left Winona.
So following the digital year in 2020, there was kind of a stripped back version of the festival in 2021, which was over in the Boats and Bluegrass grounds over on Prairie Island. But right after that, Parker and Abby, who were the executive and creative directors at the time, quit the festival. So they kind of had to reboot it a little bit. So Dylan Hilliker, who used to run Rochester, ended up becoming the new executive director of the fest. And he reached out to us to kind of help him guide that festival into this new era. So our main focus was kind of a lot of bringing in young people and bringing in as many cool bands from the cities that we knew, like literally everybody. I had a list of everyone I knew in the cities and tried to get all of them, and I got most of them. But we really wanted to focus on how to brand the event and kind of establish this new sort of identity for it. And we think we did a pretty good job.
Well, we, as Nate said, really pride ourselves on like the marketing and branding of things, which is where I come in because I'm a designer, and that just created a totally new energy for the festival, and that was kind of our mission, was to just start over, right? It was the first year in like 3 years the festival's back in its original format, and its original format, for folks who are unfamiliar, is almost 7 different venues in downtown Winona become a part of the festival. and there's over 60 bands that play over the course of 2 days. Now that happens once in Winona in the year, and then we have a second version of that in La Crosse, Wisconsin in September. So we just finished with Midwest Music Fest about a month ago, and these photos are by Juliet, who stepped in because Nate and I actually had to leave the festival. We didn't see a wink of it. We had a personal
first day.
We had a personal emergency, and we didn't even get to see our own festival. And so it has been really rewarding to see what our team was able to do without us there. The network of support from bands was extremely valuable to us. And we just got to see some amazing photos of what the experience was like for other people. And that was extremely impactful for us at a time where obviously we would have loved to have been at the festival that we worked so hard to put together. So I don't know, we have a long story. Like I said, we started when we were very young.
I feel like we've glossed over a lot of things.
Talking about yourself is hard. If there are any questions, we will happily take them. But yeah.
Does anybody have any questions?
Yeah. Otherwise,
Question?
yeah.
When it comes to the shooting the video, I'm assuming you sit down with the artist, and it's such a personal thing. It's a meeting of the arts and the different media. How does the artist come to you and say, this is what I want my video to be with? Or do you have a good understanding of what their song is and be like, and then pitch them on what we think the song should be?
I think it's kind of a combination of the two. Like a lot of what Treedome is and what we've done, our focus has been on kind of this collaboration bend of things. So like I'm a videographer, a photographer, and a curator. Maggie's a designer, a muralist, an event programmer. So we kind of play off of each other like that, but it's the same way with bands. So when a band comes to me and we're like music videos, sometimes they come in and they're like, here's the script, we're doing this. And sometimes we do that. Sometimes they come in and they're like, I like the color blue. Can we do something with blue?
Like the Dury video was, I like yellow.
And that one they were like, can we suck at sports? And I was like, yeah, but can we make it a dream?
Yeah.
So it all depends. But I think that's a big focus of it, is that it's not like I don't walk in and say we're doing this, and they usually don't walk in and say we're doing this. It's this collaboration thing. So we'll meet up a couple times over coffee or beers, chat over things, see how it works, see what we want to do with it, and then roll from there. Live sessions are a little less so like that. I usually work with Drifter Music Group up here in Minneapolis, and then I've worked a lot with Carpet Blue Studios in Rochester to do over 100 sessions over the last few years. And those are more of like bands come in, play songs, they're out, which is, what they should be.
Yeah, but sometimes we get to cross paths with some pretty cool people. Like Charlie Parr needed to do a live session to stream to LA, and we were like, that's weird. And I think the introduction to his video was like, oh, live from Minnesota in LA, I'm Charlie Parr. And we were like, okay. And so we do a very wide variety of videos, so I just encourage you to look at our YouTube and Facebook. It's always something new and interesting. And yeah, I think that's pretty much it. Yeah.
I've done a fair amount of video work over several decades. Lately, I've come out of old crew, so I'm not really that into the streaming technology. I've been trying it and have found problems with upstream capacity when I go to a lot of different venues, including out of my home studio. And I'm wondering if you face that issue and how were you able to resolve it?
So we had to call HBC at least 12 times to try and fix it.
The internet
first
company.
Time. Yeah, I don't know.
You're asking about just streaming out of a space?
Yeah, well, here, a problem that I have is that we've got one provider, basically, and they are, I supposedly have 10 upstream, but they will never guarantee the 10. So I'll do my test in the afternoon, and it's a good, nice, clean stream. And in the evening when the band's on, it just cranks down.
Yeah. Yeah.
Pixelization, and it's horrible.
Right. I mean, some of it is just basic troubleshooting and trying to figure out what is working, what isn't working. Sometimes if there's too many phones on in the room or connected, that'll bog it down. Sometimes they don't even need to be connected for things to bog it down. If you're connected like directly to the router, or if you're connected just wirelessly, that'll change what you're gonna be getting. And the big difference is also like, there's standard stuff, and then I know fiber is like twice as fast for
But
output,
yeah, we could
but-
definitely chat with you about that after, kind of explore some of those problems. But yeah, live streaming has kind of gone away for us a little bit now. We book a lot of events in person, and we have the full summer booked in person, which we're hoping remains the plan. So I think that's probably time. I have no idea, but thank you so much for having us.
Wonderful. And now we have Shawn Sullivan from Happy Productions.
I was a truck driver. My wife Emma is back there. I moved up to this little town called Bram with my wife Emma. We had 3 small children, and we moved up to this little town called Bram out of Minneapolis. So we leave this area where we're surrounded by art. Granted, we weren't getting out a lot because we had little kids, but when you're in the city, you can kind of find any music you want on any given night. A lot of times it's free, right? It's all accessible. Well, when you move out of the city into some of these small towns, and keep in mind this is 20 years ago, right? Not a lot of options, right? And so we move up to this small town. I get a job. I'm driving a truck. And I spent all these years driving a truck, and I'm gonna get to this. Then we get to the music part, but this is how the Happy Trucker Show was developed. Driving a truck, we're raising our family, we're doing what we need to do to get by, and my friends call me and they say, "We bought a radio station, and we think you'd be pretty good at it." And I'm like, "Huh?" So as a truck driver, radio is incredibly important. It's you know where you are in your programming on the day of the week. You know what's happening, and this is the terrestrial radio station. This is pre-internet, pre-streaming, right? And so having influences of like KFAI, right? You know where you are. Like it's Thursday. I got to get over to Dakota Dave Hall. I'm driving. This is what we're doing. We're getting through our day. And so my friends call me and they're like, "We bought this radio station. We think you'd be pretty good at it." So now I'm spending all this time driving. How you listen to radio when you have the opportunity to get into radio really change your perception, right? How we get better at stuff is we learn from people that are really good at their jobs. Like that's success. Find somebody who's being successful and ask them how they did it, because nobody's that lucky, right? Like nobody's just that lucky. These people have worked really hard. So now I have this time, I'm driving a truck, and they're like, "We want you to develop a show." I have no what I'm doing. Well, songs that don't suck, that's my thing, right? I take all the songs from these radio stations and put them all into one thing. And it leans you towards your Americana, your boot stomping stuff, whatever. And so the Happy Trucker Show is born. And so now I'm raising my family. I'm working with my wife, Emma. She's working hard. We're working towards the American dream, driving a truck, and then I start doing this radio show on Wednesday nights. And you start learning the importance of marketing. You learn the importance of networking, and the importance of loyalty across the board. So develop a brand. Branding is so important. So the Happy Trucker Show, basically it kind of takes off as far as I was concerned. So what happens is, so now I'm doing this Wednesday night radio show, driving a truck, and I would sometimes get laid off in the winter. And so my friends who buy this radio station, they want me to come on and do sales when I'm laid off. Well, the layoff never happens, right? So now I'm just a full-time truck driver, super part-time radio guy, and I come to them and I say, "I don't get the layoff." And so they offered me a job. They took a leap. So here I am, one day a truck driver, part-time DJ, now a full-time radio sales guy. How does that even happen, right? So I take this job, I'm doing it. Well, it turns out that radio is really cool. It's a powerful platform, and once you realize how important it is to a community, that's kind of where the magic happens. So now here I am doing my Happy Truck Show, and I was fortunate in the way where I had a lot of musicians as friends. So my friends, I'm like, "Hey, I got this radio show, come hang out on my radio show." And so they come up and they start doing live in-studio performances, right? And this is cool because it's one thing to have a really cool song, But when you can talk to an artist and talk to them about why they wrote this song, what it means to them, right? Some of that stuff. But you take it a little bit further and where'd you grow up? Are you married? You got kids? Because you get to know these people as real people, and now the listeners have a connection. And now you're building fans, especially if they like their music, right? So that's an important platform in a lot of what we do and have fun with. So then now here we are. Where am I? I'm a full-time sales guy, part-time DJ, starting to do some stuff with some live music, and it's really starting to take off. Well, at our radio station up in Brand, Minnesota, East Central Minnesota is where we broadcast to at the time. There's this big garage, and I'm sitting there, and I'm like, I look to the owners, I'm like, that's the venue. And they don't really, huh? And I'm like, just watch this. You guys ever deal with people who are like, that's never gonna work here? You can't do that, right? Lots of naysayers. We're kind of the people who are like, tell me I can't do something and watch it happen. So we developed this live music venue. So now here we are, we're an FM terrestrial radio station broadcasting to all of East Central Minnesota. You got the online, now you got the live music venue. So all these platforms are working together, right? And so all the while, I'm making stuff up as I go along. I have no idea. There might be a school for this, but I don't know. But as long as you're doing what's right, you're going to figure it out and surrounding yourself with pretty smart people. So now we have this great platform. We're a radio station. We're an art-based radio station where we can play local music back-to-back with some of the greatest and best singer-songwriters of the entire life. And then there's people saying, you can't do that, right? You can't take a song that nobody knows from an artist that nobody knows and play it on the radio next to Led Zeppelin. Why not? How are you not going to know what the song is if you don't play it? So now we got this platform where you can brand the artist, right? And then you can connect them with the listeners, you build fans, and then you take it a step further. You take this artist that nobody's heard of in our area anyway, and people get familiar with their song on the radio. Well, now they're coming to our music venue. This is a big deal. Holy crap, I'm going to see Javier Trio, right? Or Insert. And then one thing turns into another. So now we operate as a theater, right? So we do Friday night shows. We're in a small town. We don't have the kind of venue where we can book out each and every single night. So it starts out a little bit small. Well, it starts steamrolling, and it starts going, and word starts spreading. And what's interesting about our venue is we're pulling more people up from the cities, down from Duluth, over from St. Cloud, because we operate a listening room. You come in, you sit down, the listeners know that you focus on the artist. They're here to deliver with you, because how many musicians are in here? Yeah, gigging. Not all gigs are great. And some people will say that. I'll be like, tell me your worst gig story. And like, any paying gig's a good gig. To a degree, yeah. But when you're pouring your heart out as an artist, and you're in a large bar room singing about something close to you, and the people are just there to drink the beer, and you happen to be the person that's singing the song while they're there drinking the beer, it's a lot different than when you go to a place to play and sing and pour your heart out, and people are there to see you, and there just happens to be beer. It's pretty cool. There's a big difference. So having a platform for something like that. So now here we are. We got the listening room. The listening room's taken off. We got people coming to the radio station. We got a solid fan base. And then the year that never was, as some call it, the big pause happened, right? Well, we're a commercial radio station, and our revenue is coming from live events. It's coming from advertising, it's coming from marketing, it's coming from talent buying, and it's coming from putting on events for other people, right? So, tale that we all are familiar with at this point, what do we do, right? So, long story short, the owners of the station decided to sell the radio station. And we had, such as the industry, it happens, we get it. Well, so my wife Emma, my daughter Jera, and I, we had such a huge listener base online because our footprint was so small as a terrestrial radio station that really all we had to do is we needed to send some checks for all of our music licensing. But the people who bought the radio station turned it into like some soft rock station, and it really annoyed our listeners. Try not to swear, hi internet people. And so because the people that bought our call letters wanted nothing to do with our programming, wanted nothing to do with our venue, nothing to do with that, because they could have had it all. In my mind, I'm just like, what are they thinking? We've developed this. We're generating income. We're having so much fun doing what's right. And so when they switched their format, we had the opportunity to sign a lease on the building that we were at, and all of our studios, our listening room, our venue. We established happyproductions.com. So it was just a matter of getting all of our listeners to switch their IP, where they're streaming. People are already streaming. The pandemic forced people to embrace and learn technology that they've been holding out on. That was really cool for us. So the idea of an online radio station, even though people have been doing it for a long time, but it's hard to do it successfully as a commercial radio station. If that's where your revenue comes from, it's hard to do. So being that we started as a terrestrial radio station, making that switch over to online was pretty easy. So we were able to sustain our listenership. We were able to sustain our sponsorship with our businesses. That's a whole, the economic development and what that means to your communities with the arts. That's a whole I bet there's another somebody else talking about that around here too. It all plays into each other, but for us as a family, we went from a staff of 12. We had engineers, we had staff, we had DJs, we had talent, and it went from a staff of 12 to 15 to a staff of 3. That's me, my wife, and my daughter. And so here we are, we signed this thing, we got the radio station, we've sustained it, we made it, the pandemic breaks, we start doing music again, and we went from doing, begging our friends to play, to bringing in, Peter Rowan comes and plays. One of 50 people sitting there, and here's Peter Rowan. Some of the Grammy Award winning stuff, you referenced Charlie Parr. Like, these are the rooms, as venue owners, I feel our job is to make these rooms where the musicians want to play. It's one thing to get to play, and we all see it that you got to feed your families, and this is what you're doing. But to have somewhere special where you can really connect with listeners and fans, growing fans is huge. That's how musicians make their money, right? It's fans, right? They're buying your T-shirts, they're buying your CDs, they're telling your friends. And so now here we are. Come out of the pandemic, things are taking off, the listening room, everybody's itching to get out and see live music again. We're going really good. And we essentially lost the lease on our building. So now here we are. What are you gonna do? We got all this good stuff going for us. And so my wife, Emma, and I, we're taking a step and we're moving from the small town of Bram to the big county seat of Cambridge in East Central Minnesota. So we're buying this bank building, right? And so Here's where it gets really personal. We just sold our house of 20 years so we can afford to buy this building. We're gonna live in a camper this summer while we do the build out on the building. And then it's gonna work out because next fall, next winter, we'll be able to present music again. And our fan base, they're gonna stay with us. That's the thing, good people attract good people, and if you're doing good and having fun and finding a way to connect all these people, that's kind of the magic. So bottling that up, our goal will be running our radio station. It's a beautiful thing about being an online radio station is it can go anywhere. We can do it out of our camper, but I don't think we're going to, maybe now and again. We'll put the production studios in, we'll put the radio stations in. There's a bank vault that we want to turn into a professional recording studio. It's pretty cool. And then, of course, the live music venue will double and move on from there. So here's where we're at in this weird, exciting time of festivals and music. And I think that, again, a lot of good stuff came out of the pandemic. I think it's human nature to one up on who had it worse. You hear people saying it all the time. Childbirth, nobody tells you the good stories, they always tell you the bad stories, the horror stories, And so I think by surrounding yourself with people that focus on all the good stuff, and everybody's gonna be all right? Like that was our big takeaway, everything's gonna be okay. So if you wanna learn more, I'd encourage you to go to happyproductions.live. We won't want the .live because it fit us, and frankly, all the good .coms have been taken up. So happyproductions.live. If you guys want to check it out and maybe go see what we're about, I encourage you to stream. If you love music, that's our radio station. It's just for people who love music, and you can learn more about us there. Does anybody have any questions? All right, well, that's easy. That means I did good, right?
Is the new venue bigger? What's the size?
So right now, we seat 56 people where we're at right now. We'll double our floor capacity, which will allow us to keep the intimate venue, because we're not a bar, we're a theater, but to be able to get some more, because obviously we all need to make money to do what we need to do. So the more tickets we can sell, the more beer we can sell, you know, the more we can reinvest in our community. So it's gonna be cool. I hope you guys will come up and check it out sometime. happyproductions.live.
I'm Jovonta. I am a native of Minneapolis, Minnesota, North Sider, born and raised, as I like to call it, the hood. It's definitely a jungle over there, you know, lots of shooting and killing. I made it out, thank God, praise God. But I have a love for music, and I went to every school possible, and I grew up in church, an amazing church over there. And my love for music and God and community, they all collided into one situation, you know, that we kind of put under the umbrella of gospel music. So I began to sing at an early age at my church. I started directing the choir at my church, all this good jazz. And then high school years came. I sang in a choir called New Friends. It was under James Greer. I would go to rehearsals on Monday nights after school, and from there in 2007, I started a choir by the name of DFY, and DFY stood for Deliverance for Youth. And at the time, the goal was to have young people under 21 that was, you know, doing something positive, singing for Christ, you know, for God, that. And it came from all of my cousins and friends in school. They were being killed, and every time we would go to the funerals, there would be no representation of people in our age bracket that, you know, was doing something quote unquote positive. And so DFY was kind of birthed out of that to provide that need for the community and that representation that was lacking. So time moves on. The choir, we end up recording a CD. And we recorded a CD because somebody lied to us that they was going to pay for it. So we went along with it, you know, naive moment. Yeah, I'm going to pay for it. So we set up this concert, we set up this recording, and I prayed and asked God if we should still do it after they dropped the ball and wasn't responding. And it wasn't like the text days. This was in like 2009, 2010, early 2010. So it wasn't like the text days where you can like text somebody, FaceTime them like multiple ways. It was just like phone call, that's it. We weren't getting no phone call back. We had rented out this venue. Now, mind you, they was only charging us $500, but at the time, $500 is a lot of money when you're a musician who ain't got no money to record a record at all, and you're all kids. I'm 19 at the time. I don't got $5, let alone 500, okay? So this is horrible, and at that time in my life, that's the worst thing that could happen to me. Looking back now, that's pretty good. But back then, that was pretty horrible, you know? And time moves on, we record the record, we still went forth, we found the money, and we end up having 3,000 people pack into this church on Broadway, and it was just massive. We recorded this CD. I didn't know what the heck I was doing. I'll just be totally honest with you. Like, I didn't know what I was doing, but I mean, God had a plan, so I was literally learning on spot, you know, what it took. And then out of all the things I decided to do first, I decided to do a live recording. Like, I mean, what a way to jump out there, you know, just like, whoa, you're doing what? So there was like older people like saying I didn't know what I was doing. You know what? They actually was right, but it was still battered in hate. So with that being said, it was kind of like, if you know I don't know what I'm doing and you know what to do, this is the time where you just step in and help me be successful. Thank God I didn't need them, because now I don't owe them any credits in the, you know, behind the music story. We figured it out. We had some trial and error, figured it out. So this was the time where CD Baby and iTunes started to create online, right? And we got on iTunes, and we got on CD Baby, and MySpace was a thing. So this was like my generation. So MySpace, Facebook, all of this stuff was kind of like normal to me. You know how TikTok is normal to like a 7 and 8 year old? To me, Facebook and MySpace is super normal. So we put this music out online. Once again, we still don't know what we're doing, okay? I don't want to sound like this great guy. Don't know what the heck I'm doing. Because you're used to selling CDs at a table at this time, or trying to get your CDs distributed in Target or Walmart. So going online and telling everybody listen to you online was not what it is now. We go online and the CD starts to do good. We start seeing numbers. People are downloading it. So this fan base of this younger generation understood how to consume me on here. But I didn't know it was a gold mine at that time. I just was going with the flow, still trying to follow I call it the dinosaur model. You know, we got to sell CDs. So we were still selling CDs. We made a lot of money from selling CDs. For 2012, I'm 22. I didn't want to do the choir anymore, so I found the way to phase out of it in like a really cool way. So since it was working with youth, I wanted to grow up. It was kind of like my Destiny's Child Beyonce departure. Like, you know, like, I mean, I still love the group, but I mean, I still have something to do myself. So what I did was I did a solo album, and I focused on the choir in a summer program. And I took everybody that was in the choir in the summer program to Valley Fair. You know, we just raised the offering, called it a day. Recorded that record, right? The record came out. I paid for everything myself because I learned the business the last time. I said, well, if we all fundraise, that means I have to put it towards just the organization. But if I pay for the record, there's a summer program and it's a solo project, that means I can make this money back, because I kind of saw the online money. So at this time, I didn't know how to put it into words, but I started thinking like a label. I'll pay for it. So what did I do? I was in college. I took a loan out of college and got the money I needed, paid for it, and did it. Did not know when I put this record out, there was a song that I did called My Hands Are Lifted Up. It was a cover song. Out of all the songs I did on the record, it was 2 songs. One was a hymn I covered, and then one was like another song. Covered this song, did this album, and it came out in 2014. By 2015, the end of that time, that's when Apple introduced streaming, YouTube introduced streaming. So here we go. We're running into a new model. I've been blessed by the internet. We'll get there. So we run into this new model. The song is out. I had sold all of my CDs. I only ordered 800 copies, sold about 650, like legit sold and rest, you know, give them away, be a blessing, you know, radio reps, all that stuff, right? I wake up at the end of 2015 and I see one of the songs from the album has like 500,000 plays on YouTube. So this is like real at this time. This is not curated, bought, or bots. This is like, wait, where is this coming from? And look, maybe 6 months later, and we're at 1 million. Now today, we're at like 5.6 million on the song. Then on Apple Music, it was like over 1 million, and Spotify. So everywhere I was looking, this song was popping up in playlists before that was a thing. And I'm looking at the account, and I'm like, now wait a minute, I paid for this. So I took out a $6,000 loan from school. And to date, I made like $45,000 from that one project just online. This is not like sitting on a thing, but mind you, when I was doing this, this was not me trying to be like, you know, Columbia Records or Epic Records. I just started to kind of see how the model was. Long story short, I said, this is the route to go. I figured out I should pay for it myself. Of course, I would love to have a label. Didn't happen. So then I put out another record after that. It was called Finally Living. But I didn't want to put out a record where no one knew about it. So I noticed that I had a fan base online and in person, and I noticed that I had an older generation and a younger generation. So I had to find out, how do I leverage this to make it work? So I started to research Billboard charting, and I started to research how that works. And I made great friends with a lot of record executives in the gospel music industry. So any question I had, I would just bounce it off of them. Long story short, I put out this record called Finally Living. If you don't know what Billboard charting, you have, at that time, like almost 2 months, 6 weeks to do all the pre-sales you can do, and then your first week sales all count with those pre-sales, right? And so I said to myself, well, if I've sold 650 copies, you know, in 2 weeks, and with my youth choir I sold this, how do I just make this all happen in 1 week and count it towards like Billboard charting? Because I mean, yes, I'm independent, but I'm looking at the gospel numbers and I'm selling the same thing in the first week. I just need to find a way how to track them. So once again, somebody say the internet. You got to say the internet. It's like black church, the internet. There we go. See, okay. And so there was this app called App Venue where it tracks your sales. The guy from the label told me about it. He's like, yeah, we've been doing it with some of our artists, you know, just because gospel music is still very hands-on. So we've been doing it. So I got familiar with the app, learned the ways of the app, and I had an album between iTunes sales at the time, Amazon Music and Google Play was still a thing. This is before Billboard went to consumption charts. I went to #1 on the gospel charts. Like a #1 album on Billboard, you can Google it. Went to #1. Now, mind you, we were shooting for that, but you know, everyone's shooting to be in the NBA. Who says you're going to make it? You know, so I'm on this 1% chance. So I shoot and we make it to #1. So the goal was to create that leverage so people can know about the album. It was like, get everybody I know. I went around the country selling it and pre-selling and everything. But I said, this would make more noise for me if I just, you know, put this out there. And if people see it on Billboard.com, it kind of gives more level. It just blew my career all the way to a whole nother level. It was genius. It was God. I mean, yes, thank God that I figured something out. However, that had to be God. Fast forward to now. I'm a solo artist. I have had 5 #1s since that first one, all different ways, not just because the internet, I wasn't about to be sitting at nobody's table selling CDs anymore. So my second one was all digital. Then the third one was the consumption charts came out and the sales charts. So then that's when they started to utilize streaming and YouTube and tweets. So I had to build my online audience to talk about it as well, because Billboard was starting to pull out, like, we don't care if you sold 1,300 copies in 60 seconds. We need to see if the internet is talking about this. So every time the charts would switch with Billboard, I found a friend named Alex over there. He would give me the game or what I needed to do. It happened. My last #1, my most recent #1, was in the pandemic, and I featured my daughters because I wanted to get them some sound exchange money, you know, so they can live really good without thinking about it. But that time, I sold on my website, iTunes, and Amazon. We did a raffle where we told people, hey, if you buy the song, send us a picture, we'll send you some money if you choose you. You know, whatever, you know, everyone does it. And I sold the rest of my website because I wanted to kind of leverage the online component to CD tables. It worked. We went #1 again. It's the 5th time. It's great. Fast forward to now. What am I doing now? I have a community called The Wave. It is a worship community. We meet on Sundays. You know, traditionally it's called a church, whatever. But we meet on Sundays at 1:45. My wife is a part of it. It's a whole bunch of young people. We come together, we worship, we sing. But then there's another component called the Wave Worship, where I take all these amazing new young people, or even some my age, and create worship nights, worship moments. We just did a record with them to put them out on the platform, whatever platform I have. If it's this platform, I can provide it to someone else, because I know what it's like to see someone locally with the platform, and you never can, that's not a resource for you. It's not anything for you. So I never want it to be that way. So I find as much time as I can. I'm wrapping it up. And then to move recently into what I've done in addition to that, I recorded a song at this church called Living Word in Brooklyn Park. Really big church. They called me a year ago. I didn't answer the email. My fault. Finally, one of my friends came in town, Tasha Cobbs, and she was at the church, and I was like, oh, shoot, I should probably answer the email. Answered the email. I knew it was time for me to record live again, just because of the pandemic. I did a movie to be innovative and all this good jazz. So I wanted to go back to that live recording stuff that makes me money, that has yielded results, that has got me on Billboard. So I have a new song that's on Billboard, but we're focusing on radio this time. And I'm going to play a little bit of it because that's what marketing and all that stuff is. But we did that Living Word in Brooklyn Center, Brooklyn Park. It's the Maranatha School. Pastor Matt Cameron, they've been on TV for years. They were super amazing. And here we are. Come on, can you lift up your voice? Come on, lift up your voices. Father, I trust you. Father, I trust you. Father, I trust you always. And Father, I need you. Can't do life without you. Father, I need you always. Who has that testimony in the room? Sing it with us. Father, Father, I trust you. Father, Father, I trust you. You got it. Father, Father, I trust you. Somebody say always. Always. And sing, Father, I need you. Father, I need you. Can't do life without you. You got it. Father, Father, I need you. Somebody say always. Always. Hallelujah. The next part is just going to ask him to heal us. Say, Father, please heal me. So yeah, Father. So that's what I do for a living, all right? So that's my new offering, and so you can listen to it on YouTube, Spotify, all that stuff. But we are doing a slow work. We're focusing on radio, something I have never done, but you make a lot of money in radio, you know. So you get $17, $18 on Sirius XM when they play it. So, you know, focus getting over there. So we're focused on radio to kind of make money that kind of way. But this music, this song, we had 2,000 people come. This music, this song, it was just from my heart, and I was ready to worship God and all that. But I'm happy to be able to talk business with you all, because sometimes when I'm in this format, you really can't talk business. No one wants to hear about this. When, you know, you get the mic and people are hurting or people want to be healed or worship God. So I have enjoyed everyone else's stories. This is mine, and God bless you, Vegas.